Audiobook 7.1 The Book of Origins. Where does anything begin? Every journey has a starting point, but what about existence itself? What about the universe? What about you? The Book of Origins begins with the most fundamental question a conscious being can ask. Not where did I come from, but where did anything come from? Why is there something rather than nothing? And what does the answer, or the absence of one, tell us about what we are part of? This is the first room in the house, and it is very, very old. There, it's a question that stopped everyone. Every civilization that has ever existed has stood before this question and felt its weight. In ancient Greece, the pre-Socratic philosophers were the first in the Western tradition to ask it without reaching immediately for myth. Thales suggested that water was the fundamental substance of everything. Anaximander proposed something more abstract: the apeiron, the boundless, the indefinite. Heraclitus saw fire and flux at the heart of reality. Everything flows, he said. Nothing stays the same. These were not idle speculations. These were the first attempts to understand origins through reason rather than story. They didn't always get it right, but they asked the right questions. And asking the right questions is where everything begins. In the East, different traditions arrived at different starting points, and in many ways, deeper ones. The Tao Te Ching opens with a line that has stopped readers for 2,500 years. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. In other words, the origin of everything is beyond language, beyond concept, beyond the reach of any framework, including this one. Hindu cosmology placed the origin of the universe in Brahman, not a god in the personal sense, but the ground of all being. The infinite from which everything arises and to which everything returns. The self and the universe not as separate things, but as expressions of the same underlying reality. Buddhist thought took a different angle entirely. Rather than asking what the universe is made of, it asked what experience is made of. What is the nature of the mind that perceives origins at all? That inward turn from cosmos to consciousness would echo through philosophy for millennia. What all of these traditions share is the recognition that the question of origins is not just a scientific question. It is a personal one, a philosophical one, a spiritual one. It touches something at the center of what it means to be aware. More recently, science also gave us more insights. Science traces the universe back to a single point, a moment of extraordinary density and heat from which everything expanded. Everything we can see, touch, measure, and imagine, every star, every planet, every thought ever thought, all of it emerged from that first moment. But here is what science cannot yet tell us: what came before it, what caused it. Whether cause and effect even apply at that scale, whether time itself existed before the event we call the beginning. The Book of Origins doesn't pretend to answer what science cannot. Instead, it holds the scientific story and the philosophical story side by side. Not as competitors, as companions. Two languages describing the same astonishing fact: that anything exists at all. You are not separate from the origin of the universe. It's all connected. You are made of atoms forged in the hearts of dying stars. The iron in your blood was created in a supernova. The carbon in every cell of your body is ancient beyond imagination. You are not a visitor to this universe. You are a continuation of it. The Book of Origins asks you to feel that. Not just to know it intellectually, but to actually feel the weight and the wonder of being continuous with everything that has ever existed. That continuity changes things. It changes how you see yourself, how you see other people, how you see the rock on the path and the cloud overhead and the person sitting across from you. It's all connected, always has been, always will be. Understanding where things come from doesn't close questions, it opens them. Every origin points to a prior origin. Every beginning raises the question of what came before. Follow the thread far enough, and you arrive not at a solid floor, but at a beautiful, vertiginous openness. That openness is not a problem to be solved. It is an invitation to wonder. The philosophers of East and West, the scientists and the mystics, the poets and the mathematicians, all of them arrived here eventually. At the edge of what can be known, looking out at what cannot, and finding that the looking itself was the point. The Book of Origins is the first room in the house of infinity. Step inside, look around, feel how old the walls are. Notice the echoes of every tradition that has stood here before you. Greek and Chinese, Indian and indigenous, scientific and spiritual, all of them asking the same thing in different languages. Where did this come from? And notice that the door behind you and the door ahead of you are part of the same threshold. We close this audiobook with a track from the PI 11 PI catalog called It's All Connected. Let it carry the feeling of continuity, of being part of something ancient and ongoing, of origins that never truly end. Looking forward to meeting you in Audiobook 7.2, The Book of Chaos. Ready when you are.